Thom Hartmann here on the news. You need to know this. The warm weather is back, and so is Occupy Wall Street. Hundreds of demonstrators returned to Zuccotti Park in Lower Manhattan on Saturday to celebrate the 6-month anniversary of that movement. But as the sun went down, the peaceful crowd was once again broken up by NYPD officers. In all, 74 people were arrested, and there were widespread allegations of police brutality against peaceful demonstrators. One woman was taken to the hospital after appearing to suffer a seizure. So it looks like the grassroots activism that swept the nation last fall is set to bloom again this spring. Unfortunately, so is the violent suppression of free speech as the oligarchs and banksters desperately cling to power and to their enormous wealth and economic instability and social unrest. The bottom 90% of us are screwed. Unlike the years following the Great Depression in the 1930s, today's economic recovery has been one exclusively for the super rich, the top 0.1%. As economist David K. Johnston reveals, during the early recovery from the Great Depression between 33 and 34, the bottom 90% of Americans saw their incomes grow by 8.8%, while the richest of the Americans saw the incomes decline by 3.4%, thus lessening the wealth inequality in America that had been built up over the 1920s decade of Republican economic policies. But today the opposite is true. During the 2010 recovery, 93% of all income gains went just to the top 1% of Americans. As a result, the bottom 90% of Americans saw their incomes shrink 0.4%, while the super rich in America saw an enormous 21.5% increase in their incomes. Not only did banksters on Wall Street crash our economy and erase trillions of dollars of wealth held by the middle class, they also made massive profits during that swindle. And today, with Wall Street doing better than ever and not one bankster in prison for his crimes, Republicans in Congress continue to filibuster or ignore legislation that could help the middle class recover from Bush's Great Recession. In the best of the rest of the news, the head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, warned the world against overconfidence in recently improved economic conditions, despite economic gains in the United States and a historic debt swap deal in Greece holding off an immediate default. Lagarde warned a group of Chinese officials and business executives that the world still needs urgent financial reforms, saying the world economy has stepped back from the brink and we have causes to be a little bit more optimistic. But, she added, optimism should not give us a sense of comfort and certainly should not lull us into a false sense of security. Of course, Lagarde is speaking on behalf of banksters who are seeing their enormous profits roll in once again, the Greek people who are suffering from austerity and rioting in the streets, and the 49 million Americans who are living in poverty know full well that this economy is still in big trouble. Things are looking up once again for Mitt Romney. Romney won the Puerto Rico primary on Sunday and is expected to add the territory's 20 delegates to his widening lead over Rick Santorum. And looking ahead at Tuesday night, when Republican voters in Illinois will hit the polls in a crucial primary, looks like Romney's eyeing another win. Polls show Romney with big leads in the state, with Rasmussen reporting a 9% edge for Romney over Santorum, and public policy polling reporting a 15-point lead. This is welcome news for Romney, who's hoping to begin healing soon from a brutal Republican primary season featuring millions of billionaire dollars in super PAC-funded negative ads. Senator John McCain even said that this is one of the nastiest campaigns he'd ever seen. So as Romney strengthens his grip on the nomination, it's time voters start asking themselves if they trust a man who thought it was fine to strap his sick dog to the roof of his car during a 12-hour road trip. Something tells me the long-departed Seamus the dog might get the last laugh this year. Congress has its lowest approval rating ever recorded, just 11%. And a team of political scientists might have figured out why that is. Professors Kenneth Poole and Howard Rosenthal examined the votes taken by the House of Representatives during this Congress, compared previous Congresses dating all the way back to the founding of the Republic, and discovered that this House is the most conservative it has ever been in the past 133 years. Democrats have even made some of their most conservative votes in the last 100 years. Of course, this is the House of Representatives that was elected with the help of over $300 million in outside corporate spending, thanks to the Supreme Court's Citizens United decision in 2010. So the best way to look at the uber-conservative policies coming out of the House and benefiting only the top 1% is that they're simply the returns that the Republican Party's investors were expecting when they threw all their money into the 2010 election in the first place. Small wonder that the American people are sick of Congress. And finally, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, infamous for speaking truth to power, now wants to be part of that power. Over the weekend, Assange announced he'll be running for a seat in the Australian Senate. Assange is an Australian citizen, but is currently on house arrest in the UK while he fights extradition to Sweden to face sexual assault charges. He could also face extradition to the United States as the Justice Department tries to tie Assange to Bradley Manning, a soldier accused of leaking top-secret military and State Department files. WikiLeaks also announced that it is recruiting a candidate to run against Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard in her home seat. That's certainly one more way to bring a little more transparency to government. And that's the way it is today, Monday, March 19th, 2012. I'm Thom Hartmann on the news.